Hi, everybody. This is Loren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal, and welcome to this week's Search Engine Journal Show Live. We do these on a weekly basis, or at least try to, broadcasting first through all of our fans on Facebook and YouTube, and then afterwards uploading the audio to our podcast feed, practicing best practices in the world of content marketing and content repurposing. So with me today, I have Cindy Krum, founder of Mobile Moxie. Hey, Cindy, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Great, thanks. Great. It's really a pleasure to have you today. I know that you had the chance to present a little bit with Martin Splitt in the past, I believe, on the passages algorithm and a little bit in the subtopics. And you're also really the go-to pro when it comes to mobile optimization or mobile first in the world of SEO. So it's really a pleasure to have you, and I'm excited because I can't think of a better time with the rollout of so many changes at the end of last year, and then with mobile first becoming, I guess, more important in March, and Core Web Vitals in May. It's an exciting time to be in search.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been building. You know, I've looked back at some of the things I've written, and everything is just going along kind of a predictable path. And it seems just like every update, Google is pushing people to be more ready for mobile users.
I'm glad you bring that up, because one thing that I strive to do from a practitioner standpoint, and we really strive to do at SEJ, is to stay ahead of the curve, right? To try to get an idea where Google is going. And then also to, I guess, use common sense. Because most of what I read from the passages algo and also on the subtopic perspective, it's really common sense. It's helping Google to better understand the topic matter of what you're talking about on the page. And then it seems with subtopics, it's really to put together rich content to really hit the user intent perspective. So, which may sound new to some folks. I think we're kind of right in the middle in terms of what we're doing. Of course, you're going to make adjustments accordingly. But then, like you said, seeing that all build up to this mobile update that's coming as well. Before we get started, how about a quick introduction, a little bit about yourself?
Oh, right. Yes. Hello. I am Cindy Krum. I'm the CEO of Mobile Moxie, based in Denver, Colorado. We do mobile SEO and ASO consulting and have since 2008. And we also have a super duper awesome SaaS tool set that focuses on mobile SEO. So you might have heard of the SERPerator, which lets you see search results on any mobile phone from anywhere in the world, exactly as someone standing in that place would see them. And then that also, we parse and track all that information over time, including a bunch of stuff that most of the tools don't parse or ignore, like ads and knowledge graph and all that. And Pagescope and App Rankalizer. So we have fun tools that are growing in popularity and need as things go more and more towards mobile, and other tools I feel like just aren't doing it to answer the questions that sometimes need to be answered.
I'm going to totally change the subject here, but do you see Mobile Moxie as being more of a services company or a solutions company? Consulting or tech? Consulting,
a little bit of both.
SaaS? Yeah.
It's both. Yeah. We're a small company, but it's both. We're trying to go more and more towards the tools, just so that I can have a vacation someday. But we still do a lot of consulting, and I love the consulting, and I would never give up the consulting entirely, because it's fun.
Yeah, it is. It is, especially when you're working with multiple clients in multiple industries. You definitely have to keep on top of things in more ways than one.
Yeah.
So let's get into passages. Would you mind kind of going over for our viewers and listeners exactly what the Google Passages algo update was or is, and how it can affect them?
Yeah, so when Google announced Passages, what they announced is that they're doing a better job of finding deep pieces of text and lifting those into search results, and or linking people directly to a deep part of a page rather than just evaluating a page as a whole. And this is actually something that I've been talking about for over 3 years. I think I talked about it the first time at Oktoberfest in 2018. And because I had seen it happening, and what was interesting was, yes, Google could link to a jump link on a page, but what was interesting was Google was overlaying jump links that weren't there in the code, and that's kind of what passages are. And at the time I called them fragments, or I called them fraggles, because it's a fragment of text plus a handle, like a jump link, right? So fraggles, obviously. But Google, yeah, exactly. But Google did not take that name, and many people are sad about it, and they call them passages. But what's important about the passages announcement that I think many people are missing is it's in the heading in an article about AI. It's not like, we're going to tell you about SEO. It's like, we're going to tell you about AI. And the reason AI is important there is because, and the reason it's a huge shift is because Google has always evaluated things one page at a time. And the whole page had to kind of be on the exact same topic, or else other topics would dilute subtopics or sections of the page. So if you had an article about, I always give this example, if you had an article about your garden and you had tomatoes and lettuce and celery, you might not rank for tomatoes, lettuce, or celery unless you created separate pages. It was Google's algorithm was pushing us towards thin content. And even though the Googlers aren't talking about it this way, I think that the architects of this update were thinking about it as a way to mitigate this need for separate pages for each topic, because that's not how a good website is necessarily built. Does that make sense?
It does. And I've definitely seen a trend in terms of jump links and table of contents being actively added to sites. Some that immediately come to mind are like Healthline, Very Well Health, a lot of sites that had a positive impact as a result of the December core update and have lived through the health and your money, your life updates as well, and applied that accordingly. And then I've just noticed as a whole, there's many more table of contents being integrated, which, are you familiar with Gianluca Fiorelli's content in his blog? He's been doing it for a long time. He did a really great post on how Google image search identifies different changes in images. And I think he used a lot of his models as examples, but he does a very good job of almost taking a Wikipedia style approach to his writing in his blog, where it's that entry point, table of contents, and then usually a very long post, and each subtopic is typically defined at the top, accessible throughout the scrolling journey, and then citations and everything at the bottom, which is like very basic.
It's very basic, but I think Gianluca and I, interact a lot, and he actually has a really brilliant talk about the image stuff as well, image SEO and the machine learning behind the image algorithm. But I think, he's not here, so I'm just going to say, I think he's been listening to me, and that's why he did it. But I do want to make the distinction, because what we've been saying and what we've been advising is that, yes, it does right now, jump links went away in popularity for a long, long time. They were big like in the 1990s, and now they're coming back. But there is a slight difference between jump links and fraggles, or at least they're not necessarily the same. So we have started encouraging people to add jump links and tables of contents and H2s, usually with each jump link. If it's a subtopic on a page, the jump link and the H2 seems to be a little bit magic. But the interesting thing about fraggles / passages is that Google doesn't need the jump link. It can put it there for you if it finds a unique bit of context that it wants to lift and rank. But then the other thing is that ability to scroll directly to a thing on a page without a jump link there necessarily is big. in an indexing perspective, that's huge. But also the ability for Google to separate out topics when it's evaluating a page and say, I can see that this is a separate topic. And even though the whole page, the rest of the page might dilute this topic, this appears to be the answer to that query. And
it's really interesting. I think I started to see that behavior with feature snippets and AMP powered sites probably early last year.
The AMP highlighting was one of the first clear proof that Google can and does do this.
And it's highlighted in yellow, right? Like when they first started, I haven't seen it for a while, or purposefully not clicking on them. But yeah, seeing it highlighted, like the answer to the question, it is pretty amazing. Because to your point, it's like almost like Google for so long has been rewriting the way that titles and descriptions appear within the SERPs themselves based upon the query and the intent of the searcher, and which to me they're bettering the experience for the end user, but they're also kind of giving suggestions about what you should probably do. And the fact that they're inserting that behavior to use the same the Fraggle, like the same way a jump link would work, is pretty amazing at instantly asking or answering that question. Oh, by the way, speaking of the 90s, when I said that Gianluca's posts are basic, I meant they remind me of the way that we were taught to produce HTML documents in college in the late 90s. It was like entered, okay, it was almost like an SEO class. Like put your H1 at the top. Right. Okay, what are your outline pieces? Okay, those are H2s. And it's just like it's kind of like a trip down memory lane, so to speak.
I want to key into something that you said, because I feel like recently, I know you've been doing this probably as longer than me. I don't know what year you started doing SEO, but I feel like these days, a lot of people just hang on every word that comes out of the Googler's mouth. And Martin, in our conversation, our other SEJ conversation recently, said that the system that figures out and finds passages is different from the system that finds featured snippets. And he said that, and I know he said that. I was there. But what I'm telling you is I don't think they started the code over from scratch, because I've had people arguing with me going, but it's a different system. Like, yes, so what? It's a different system. It might have the same core code and the same mechanisms for finding the text, even if it's a different system. So I don't want SEOs to just take everything that the Googlers say without critically thinking about it, because as people who build stuff, I can tell you, we reuse code. Right. We don't start from scratch.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It is interesting, though, that it would use two different systems to manage the feature snippet component and the Fraggle component as well. How are subtopics part of this whole equation?
Well, so I think that subtopics take Fraggles and assemble them in a cluster. So that's why they would be announced in the same article, because it's the same AI going, this seems like a hard question to answer, but here are some things that seem to have covered this as a subtopic. I don't know. It just seems like a way of clustering ideas, where I've been saying this for a while as well. I think it's interesting the way that Google will show knowledge graph and key into a particular part of a query when it seems like they don't understand the question. So this is an example I give a lot as well. If you search for something like, I haven't done it recently, but let's just pretend this still works. If you search for something like, who's the drummer for the Cranberries, the band? It's going to show you a knowledge graph for the Cranberries. And you're going to feel like you got a good result. Thing is, Cranberries didn't have a drummer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so Google can't figure it out, and Google's like, I don't know. So it just shows you this cluster where the user still feels like they got a good answer, and the user feels empowered to dig in and like they're really, really close, even though Google wasn't actually able to answer that query. And I think subtopics and passages are a bit like that too. It's kind of like cheating on queries that they don't understand. So they're getting better at knowing, when do I really, really understand this? And like having a confidence interval. And when it's not in that confidence interval for them to rank the exact right page, I think they're going for these other options.
So they're learning, right? They're learning which is better over time. Do you feel?
They're learning, and it's a shortcut, right? Like if I were Google, how hard would I want to try to answer that question versus just showing a result where people feel like I answered the question?
It wouldn't work on Jeopardy, but it might work on Twitter or a search.
It's like horseshoes and hand grenades. Close enough.
Cool. So speaking of featured snippets, everything else that's going on with Google, during this core update, I started to see, during the 2 sleepless nights of the core update in December, I started to see a lot of organic product inserts, which seemed to go away. Really scared me, actually, because they were completely off topic. But one thing we've definitely experienced forever, I remember Bill Slawski presenting on Ask Search when they started putting together sidebar information and things like that years ago. And search results have become more and more rich over time. A lot of us, I started really seeing this with a lot of my brick and mortar clients once local packs rolled out in the SERPs as well. Instead of them getting the clicks to the site, they started getting calls to the phone number, right? But the more and more things that Google adds to the search real estate, effectively pushing down, or in some ways masking the old 10 blue links, or the old blue link system, because it's not only 10 anymore. That's leading to a loss in clicks and a loss in traffic in some situations. So are there ways to remedy that? How do you usually work within that, especially when you're consulting on the client level, when they may see a loss in traffic based upon different things that Google's inserted into the results themselves, especially in a mobile experience where you might have knowledge graph or local dominating the first or second scroll?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, I've called myself a mobile evangelist for a long time, and now I think I'm changing into like a new paradigm of SEO evangelist, because I want people to start thinking about this differently. I feel like SEOs are kind of like upset that Google's changed their thing, but Google can change their thing whenever they want. They can change how they operate. It's their company. We rank at their discretion and at their pleasure. And so when Google changes how they present results, like for instance, the product results, now those got rolled back because they weren't good results, but Google has already said that they're going to start ranking more and more of these free product listings. I don't know if you've looked at them, but they look like a knowledge graph for a product.
Yeah.
And it's a result of being part of the Merchant Center program, which is the same feed that you would set up if you were doing Google Shopping. But what they're saying is you can set up a Merchant Center feed and not do Google Shopping, but get these free product listings. And so that's SEO. My point is you've got to do that. That's a huge opportunity. And if your competitors aren't doing it, then you win. And those rank really well because Google wants to show them off and users like them. So we have to do that, and we have to embrace these changes. And yeah, it's hard to outrank Knowledge Graph, but maybe you can be a part of Knowledge Graph. Or you've got to look at the SERP, not just in terms of blue links, but like, how can I be in this stuff that's pushing the blue links down? Because I've been talking about the SERP in terms of like a restaurant. You have like front of shop and back of shop, and front of shop is where the customers are, and back of shop is where the stuff is made. And the blue links are where the stuff is made, but the users are in the front of the shop.
Exactly. It's like a froyo place. The blue links are the froyo, but then what people really care about is all the candy and stuff they can put on top. So
Yeah,
by the time you start eating it, you're full before you get to the froyo.
So the advice then, I think, is to not insist that the only thing an SEO can do is rank in blue links. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing to do, and one of the reasons that we thought it was important enough to look at SERPs in a real way, not just in a parsed way from a tool, but see the visual of the SERP, is because people would come to us and say, like, I lost all my traffic, but I'm still in position 1. What happened? And it could be a number of things, right? And for a long time, Google wasn't even counting featured snippets as a ranking. So those were just invisible. And all of these things that drive engagement with Google are a bit invisible in a lot of the tools, or at least they're hard to know how big they are, how enticing they are. But notice when you're searching that they have more pictures, more expanders, more little arrow button plus box thingies, where Blue Link doesn't have that normally. And so these things that Google is making are more enticing to a user than a blue link. And so we want to figure out, it's a hard sell for some companies, but if we want any of the traffic, we have to figure out how to give as much of our stuff to Google in a way that they can parse and understand it and put it where they want it to go.
And Google is very good at baiting companies into doing that. I don't know if that's the right word, but they did with featured snippets, right? They retaught the entire internet how to write a document, right? Bullets, question, answer, statement, bullets, right? And then, last year with FAQ, rich snippets rolling out, suddenly everyone started doing questions and answers on their normal pages, product pages, collections pages, blog posts, because they realized that, hey, that's going to lead to me getting more of this real estate that's so hard to find within the Google SERPs themselves, and possibly even increase the click-through rate. Now we've all added FAQ data that Google needs to all of these important pages. So it's so interesting how they can just add that one beneficial feature in the SERPs, and then we all do it and teach them what they need to learn. And, we've seen FAQs kind of go away as well. So I'm wondering what's next.
We're a free army that's training their machine learning programs. All Google has to say is, if you do it this way, you'll rank better or get this other special treatment in the SERP. And every SEO is like, let's do that. And all that's doing is training Google's machine learning so that they don't need that code anymore. For instance, like, we trained Google's machine learning on languages by all putting hreflang, and now Google's graded every single language. Magic, right?
Yeah.
But we said that, like, Google's good at English, and we map English to all these other languages, so Google uses machine learning to learn all those other languages much better, because we gave them the map that the machines could follow to learn it. And you can see that replicated everywhere in every update. It's kind of like coercive search engine management, right? Like, we tell you that this will help you rank, you do it, it trains our search engine, and yeah, maybe it helps you rank for a while, but then you don't need that code. It becomes obsolete because we've learned how to figure it out without that code.
Yep. And then at the same time, they launched like official things like Question Hub to be able to go in and answer all of those. One point to all of you SEOs out there who may, one thing Cindy brought up was Google Merchant Center. And if you are working on the e-com side, any site that sells product, get access to Google Merchant Center right now. Not only because it helps that site, there's things that you can do to help that site rank organically, but that Google Merchant Center or that organic shopping data, I do not believe is accessible within Search Console. It's solely reported within Google Merchant Center. So if you don't have that access and the ability to report on that traffic, because there is some coming through already, get that access ASAP, right? Because that goes to prove the ROI of the work that you're putting in. And it's a much more direct ROI, especially with e-com, right? Is that Barclay I hear in the background?
Yeah, I'm trying to mute him in and out. I think I'm getting an Amazon package. But,
yeah. That's how it always works. I just had the UPS Man, pull up a little bit earlier myself. So whenever we're doing these live shows, that's the way things always seem to work. So yeah, get
One
access
more
to the
point.
Merchant Center right now. Yes.
I'll echo what you said. Absolutely. It's free and it gives you something that looks like product knowledge graph, and it's a beautiful result, and they just magically float to the top because Google wants to show off their new thing, right? Always when they have a new thing, it magically floats to the top because Google wants to show it off, test it out, see, you know, how much engagement it can get and how they need to improve it to get more engagement. But the other point in all of this that I also think SEOs are missing is, yes, you know, I've been the mobile evangelist, but now I'm kind of more thinking about how to look at this differently. And part of that is because of voice search. And I know people are tired of hearing about voice search and not feeling it, but the ability of a Google device to answer a question relies on all of the question and answer, Q&A, FAQ, how-to schema, all of the interactivity that's really panning out well for a Google Home Hub kind of experience is because they've been able to find the passages or find the questions and the answers, and parse it, because the worst experience imaginable would be that thing reading me the whole web page.
That's true. It's very true.
And so if I say, hey, Google, can my dog eat squash? I don't want it to start with all of the things that a dog can eat, you know, or why I should care about what table scraps my dog gets. I just want the answer to the question.
Or you don't want to ask for a recipe and it goes to a recipe blogger. Oh, on my trip to Peru, I had the chance to stop by this small restaurant on the way to Machu Picchu, and they made this one dish, and I had to come home and recreate it. No, Google. I just want the recipe. Yeah, too bad Amazon got the jump on Google in terms of the home device market, right? It just... yeah.
Do you use Amazon more? Do you use Alexa more than you use Google?
We do. We use Alexa for just about everything. I don't have a very smart house. I have a smart refrigerator, but I took it offline because that just freaked me out. And we just use Alexa for a couple of things around the house ourselves. But I have so many different devices that are Google powered, right?
Yeah. I do recommend a Google Home Hub just to try it out, because I have both, like in every room, because I'm always testing these things.
Yeah.
And the Google Home Hub, what's nice is you can just yell questions at it. And it usually can find an answer. And, you know, it can place calls and stuff like that. And it's true that I don't use it I'm not doing advanced, sophisticated research. Like, I'm not looking for interest rates in Peru on blah, blah, blah. I'm just looking for what my dog can eat, or, you know, what's a recipe for paella or whatever. But that's a lot of what the web is it's not super sophisticated. It's just someone trying to get some traffic and engagement and brand awareness. And with the Merchant Center stuff, there's probably some intent there, right? If Google can index all of the products that are available on the internet, then it has a shot at taking back some ground from Amazon. If I can yell, hey, Google, find me a green backpack, or find me a green backpack under $100.
Especially with the transition of Amazon loyalty to people feeling more safe ordering from multiple different stores, like that really happened. That's part of the COVID thing, right? Amazon's supply chain backed up. We all started ordering from other places. Oh, we can order from other places too. Used to be I do my research over here and then go to Amazon and see if they had the product because it was all in. Now with accelerated payment options, there's opportunities all over the place. And, you know, speaking of Alexa, one of the first things my son did once we got our Alexa was to order a PlayStation, which I had promptly had to cancel that order and set up permissions. So
I don't know. I tried it with the Alexa, but one of the things I like about the Google stuff is I can yell at the Google devices to turn on my TV or change the channel. If I can't find the TV remote, I can just say, hey, Google, change it to CNN, and it will.
That's pretty awesome. I might have to look into it just for that reason. Cindy, we had a question come in from Frank the Tank Watson. Hey, Frank, thanks for jumping in. What changes do you see in how the SERPs will look when mobile first index is fully integrated versus elements now in desktop results? So interesting question. It kind of seems to me that right now in mobile, Google's just kind of moving things around to make that experience better or different. But are you currently seeing specific content changes in the SERPs between desktop and mobile? And do you think that will be accelerated with this next update?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I really think that Google wants to be the I've said for years, the presentation layer of the internet. David Mim went up to me and he says that Google wants to be the transaction layer of the internet. And he's right. It may have started one way, but it's moved to what David Mim is saying. So I think that, you know, being the case, the way that the results are changing for mobile, other than just stacking, is this interactivity and the addition of more buttons and plus boxes. And the example I've been giving is the COVID results page, which, you know, hopefully I looked at for far too many days. But what it does is it takes not just web pages, it also takes in data sets, because you can now get Google to index whatever data set that you want without pages, right? We don't need pages to rank. We can index data sets, we can index apps, we can index products. This is how people need to be thinking about ranking in Google, is not just indexing a website, but indexing other things, data, products, you know, anything else. And it doesn't have to go to a URL. And so in the COVID results, it's got interactive graphs that you can click on and play with, and it's got articles, and it's got videos, and it's this multifaceted result, so people can kind of pick their poison. They can choose and touch what they want. It's kind of like a kid's, like, press the thing and the cow goes moo. Like, you get to just touch what you like, right? You're like, it's a very interactive visual experience, and you're like, I want that. And you don't have to read anything necessarily, and there's just all these buttons, right? It's, yeah, I do think it's a weird analogy, but it's like one of those kids' playthings where you just touch things and it responds. It's very visceral and simple at the same time.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting looking at the COVID results pages since day one. It used to be worldometer.info ranking #1 for everything, which had great data. And then over time, it's become more of just a Google-powered destination of data and of resources, but presented in a different way. And I saw on Twitter, I think last night, someone shared the results for, it was like trapezoid or something. And the way that this page was set up, it was an informational page about geometry in the Google results. And it was very similar to that. Yeah. So really keep an eye on, I would also say, yeah, keep an eye on what Google's doing, right? Keep an eye on what they're doing in terms of the most traffic terms on the web. It used to be things like sports scores or March Madness tournaments that would give us an idea on where they're going. But now with COVID results and results that are really trending, we're getting a better idea of things across the board.
Well, and think about one more thing. Think about AMP stories, and Google's worked directly with WordPress to get AMP stories and Google stories directly in WordPress. Why would they do that? You've always got to ask yourself why. Why would they do that? Because they want this stuff that's super engaging, interactive, to be able to surface it. And like same with podcasts. Google made a big push for podcasts 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. Why? Because they can process language, so they can start to surface podcasts as an answer, right? Because if they can live transcribe a phone call, they can certainly live transcribe a podcast. And what is a podcast usually, except a bunch of Q&A? And they can parse it out and tell who's talking. And so I think that soon enough, we'll have parsed bits of podcasts, just like we already see parsed bits of YouTube videos. where
Mhm.
it's like, here's the answer to your question. Why would they not also be doing that in podcasts?
Why
And
not?
so you don't, this is, I keep saying, you do not have to have a website to rank. You could have a YouTube channel, a podcast, just products, whatever. And so that's how, when I say I'm changing what I'm evangelizing for, I don't know what to call it, but it's that. It's being multifaceted on the web and not relying just on your blue links. Do you have a word for that?
No, but I've heard people call it carpet bombing before. The
I don't want to do that.
I don't know if that's a positive or negative, but it's like content carpet bombing, like hitting everything. But I'm glad that you bring that up, because we are kind of trained to only look at things like user and session data and analytics, right? From SEO only. But then when you think about what those benefits are from a content marketing and an SEO perspective, it's not only traffic, but it's the presentation of your brand and the expertise of your brand within the Google experience itself. You may not be getting all the clicks, but you may be answering questions without even knowing it. You may not be getting all the traffic to your site, but the knowledge graph showing that your business was established 20, 10, 30, 50 years ago, who the CEO is, who the people are that work at the business, et cetera, may help to make that decision at the end of the day for someone to go with this carpet cleaning company or another carpet cleaning company. So that multi-touch attribution, even things that we aren't necessarily aware of, does matter at the end of the day. And I think that it sounds like you're on the way to be able to bring all of that together, whatever it's being called. But if we can bring that together in a way so it's not just analytic data at the end of the day, which is incredibly important, but also what's the share of voice out there, right?
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
the influence within the results? And if people are spending more time within the Google results, then I would think it's beneficial for my company to also show up more, not necessarily to drive traffic, but to continuously get that brand and build that trust for the user at the end of the day.
Well, and if you're not there, your competitor's there. So it's a trade-off. Maybe you don't want to try too hard to be there, but do you want to try too hard to prevent your competitor from being there? Yeah.
Or
Usually.
competitors, like different competitors based upon where people are searching from, which makes it even more interesting.
It's often the only thing that people will see is that. They're not scrolling. When you get to the blue links on a rich result that started really interactive at the top, and you start scrolling and you see blue links, people reverse and go back up.
Yeah, or they scroll all the way to the bottom to see the related stuff down there. So good stuff. It's been great connecting with you today, Cindy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for jumping on. We try to do these for 25 minutes, and I see now we're hitting the 40-minute mark. I hope you didn't have any meetings lined up. Sounds like you got a delivery. So pretty busy Friday. I dropped a link to where your Twitter handle, and then also the Mobile Moxie site within the comments. Any place else we can find you online?
I'm all over Twitter, and that's the easiest way to reach me. And I did set up a promo code for the listeners for anyone who wants to try the tools for free for, what did I do? I did 15 days. So 15 days free, which is double what you normally get. And the promo code is SEJMM.
Okay, so I'm gonna drop that in the comments right now. Use your promo code SEJMM at Mobile Moxie. Yes.
One more thing I'll tell you, the Pagescope is something that I don't talk about a lot, but it has a really cool diff checker that'll show you the difference between rendered and unrendered code on a mobile phone, which can be hard to get. And it can track that stuff over time, which is another thing where I feel like a lot of other tools are lacking, tracking code changes.
Pagescope, that's the tool?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So at Mobile Moxie, you have Serperator, Pagescope, and then App Rankalizer. All greatly named, by the way. What is the Serperator? Let's go through these real quick.
Oh, Serperator, it's the one that just lets you see real search results from anywhere in the world. And so there's a testing view where you just look at it. And then there's a dashboard kind of parsing view where we parse the whole thing. We tell you if you're there. We give you a score based on what's in the SERP, because we let you not just look at the blue link, but we let you claim other things. So if your knowledge graph is there, if you have ads there, if you have people also ask, you can just claim everything that's you, and then we give you a score, a Moxie score for that SERP. And then we track that over time and remember what you've claimed.
Excellent. And the pages scope you went over shows different types of, it's a mobile emulator. So first time I met Bartosz, he had about 10 different cell phones on him, and he was trying to load things in all different phones at one time. Actually, I think he was stopped in immigration because he had 10 different cell phones on him or something.
I've done that as well, and the Germans didn't like it much.
Okay.
I used to do that as well.
And real quick, App Rankalizer, what does that do?
Oh, it traps app rankings in the 2 app stores, Google Play and iTunes App Store, because there's SEO there, and it's different from the SEO that we do on websites. So it tracks those, and it works really well internationally. And it's most of the ASO tools are built by developers who don't understand SEO, and so they're like really hard to use. And the developers don't realize that we've already figured this out in the SEO field. So we let you like upload and download and manage all the keywords that you're tracking in a much more streamlined way than the people who haven't figured out how to manage keywords like an SEO does.
Nice. And since you've been so generous with your time today, I'll be extra generous. So could you please repeat exactly what people get with that promo code?
15 days, SEJMM.
Okay. So for you podcast listeners out there, at mobilemoxie.com, enter SEJMM as the promo code, and you get 15 days, usually 7 days. So Cindy has more than doubled the free trial for listeners today. Cindy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for jumping on the Search Engine Journal show, and really appreciate your time and your insight.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend.